The tank engine, for its size, is the most versatile thing on rails. And the tender engines are responsible for all the passengers and heavy goods that arrive on the island of Sodor. This is NWR Stories.
It was a cool spring morning on the island of Sodor. James, the red engine, was getting ready to back down onto some coaches for his morning stopping train. He didn't like it very much, but at least it was better than pulling freight cars. He was about to set off until his driver had walked up to him to give him some news. "What's going on?" said James. "Why aren't we going?" "Sorry, James, but we're needed at the shed. The Fat Controller wants to talk to a few engines, and you're included in that list." "All right, then," said James. James was uncoupled from his coaches, and he set off to Titmuss sheds. When James arrived to the sheds, he saw that Emily and Henry were there as well. So after turning onto the turning table, he backed into the berth between the both of them. "So he called you guys here as well," said James.
"Yes, he did. I think he's going to discuss Gordon's absence since he's at the works with his safety valve getting burst."
"Yes, I wonder if he's going to choose who's going to pull the express in his absence," said Emily. "Well, you know, out of all engines, it's going to be me," said James.
"And what makes you figure that?" replied Henry.
"Well, I'm the fastest. I'm the most stylish engine on the island. Nobody has ever seen a red coat like mine." Henry and Emily just rolled their eyes at this, but they soon all quieted down because the Fat Controller had arrived.
"Good morning, engines."
"Good morning, sir," said all of them.
"Now, I'm here to discuss Gordon's absence. Since he is at the works getting his safety valve repaired, we're gonna need someone to take care of the express."
All the engines looked around anxiously to see who he would choose.
"And on my way here, I decided that the engine that's gonna pull the express is Emily."
Me, sir?" said Emily.
"Yes. Due to your performance recently, you will do well with the express."
"Excuse me? Why not me?" said James.
"Well, James, you would have a tendency to show off instead of doing your job. Now, prove to me that you are able to do your job without showing off, then maybe, just maybe, I will consider you."
And with that, the Fat Controller walked away.
"Well, good luck, Emily,"
said Henry, not showing a spite of jealousy. "Thank you, Henry, I will." And with that, Emily chuffed off to the station to go pull the express. "Unbelievable," said James.
"Oh, James, don't be like that. You know Emily is qualified to pull the express."
"I know, but her over me? Ugh." And with that, James rolled away to go collect his train. One of James' first jobs was to collect a slow goods train, one of the trains that stopped on the many stations on the island of Sodor. James hated slow goods trains because he felt like an engine of his caliber should not pull goods trains. "Come on, driver, let's get this over with, so I can get back to more dignified work," said James poutfully. "Oh, James, don't be like that," said his driver. "Humph," said James. But suddenly, he heard a whistle. Emily rushed by with the express, traveling at a very high speed. James could not believe what he just seen. Suddenly, James had an idea. Maybe if I finish my jobs with high speeds, then maybe Sir Topham Hatt would let me pull the express, said James. So with a toot of his whistle, James set off with his goods train. Throughout the day, James was rushing along the line, hoping to get his work done as fast as possible. He was moving so fast that his driver and fireman had to steady him when going around certain turns on the track. But little did James know, he was being rather careless when it came to the other engines. I'm afraid to say that this would get James in trouble with the Fat Controller. That night, James arrived at the shed. He was tired and happy and very pleased with himself. He was sure that this idea would give him praise from the other engines, but sadly, he was very mistaken. "You might as well call me the Red Rocket," said James, "because I was very fast today." "You were also very careless," said Emily. "Yes, you were traveling down the line a bit too fast, James. You could knock yourself to bits if you're not too careful." "Please," said James, rolling out of the shed gently. "I am the reddest, the fastest, and the safest engine on the island. Nothing will ever happen to me," said James pompously. "I remember a black engine from 1925 said the same thing. But not only was he wrong, but his wooden brake blocks failed." "I don't have to listen to this," said James, and he rolled back into the shed, going to sleep. The next morning, James arrived into the station to see the goods train that he would be pulling. "Aren't we facing the wrong way, driver?" said James. "Sorry, James, but we're gonna have to push this goods train. The turning table is jammed." "I'm not used to facing this way, but fine, I'll do it. And I'll be fast, too," James said to himself. James buffered up to his train and soon began to push it out the station. With a toot of his whistle, he set off with his train. James continued down the line at a fast speed, even though his driver warned him not to go fast with a train like this. But James did not listen because he wanted to go fast to show the Fat Controller that he could pull the express. They stopped at a junction. One track led to a small line, while the other track led up to the bridge. Said James. "Maybe I should take the bridge track. It's far quicker, and the other track will just send me across the valley." But James did not know that taking a heavy train up the bridge could be hazardous because before the bridge there is a high slope, and engines must be careful when pulling heavy trains. As James moved his train up the hill, it happened. The trucks saw this as an opportunity to cause mischief. Okay, when he pushes us up here all the way, we're gonna go crashing down the hill. All the trucks started to giggle. What are you trucks planning up there? Said James. But then it happened. He felt his front wheels get pulled forward. But then he realized, oh no, this isn't right. The train rushed down the hill at a fast speed, dragging James along. Oh no! This is not going to be good, said James. Then it happened. The train rushed in front of a junction and derailed right at the crossing. James lay dazed and surprised. The freight cars were everywhere. His driver and fireman had jumped clear, but nonetheless, it was a huge mess. Alright, James, look what you did. You caused an accident blocking the main line, and Emily will be rolling by with the express soon. And they were right. Emily rushed through the tunnel with the express. Emily applied her brakes just in time. James, what happened here? Said Emily. I wasn't being careful on the hill and I crashed at the bottom. Well, we need to get this mess cleaned up immediately. Soon the mess was getting cleaned up. Rosie had took away the unhurt cars while Andy had brought the breakdown crane. James was carefully lifted up out of the field and gently pulled back onto the rails. Diesel came and took James back to the shed. The Fat Controller came to see James. James, I am disappointed in your behavior. Not only because of this accident, but due to your behavior of the last few days. You have been speeding down the line, not giving a regard for the safety that we have on this railway. You could have caused serious accidents. I know, sir, but I was only going fast because I wanted you to choose me to pull the express. Speed is not the reason why I didn't choose you to pull the express. I need engines who can take care no matter what job they're given. But you have just shown me that you still have a lot to learn about pulling the express. As your punishment, you will be on strictly good services for the next 2 months. Do I make myself clear? Yes, sir, said James sadly, and the Fat Controller walked away. Now James pulls goods trains until he is able to be trusted again. But in my opinion, I think James does feel sorry for his actions. Do you?